Hi, guys, and welcome to Episode 2 of the Faith, Fish, and Feathers podcast.
Today's episode is going to be called The Traveling Turkey Hunter.
Yep.
The topic of today, it's going to be more of a Q&A. I'm going to be asking Caleb a lot of questions, and he's going to be giving some of his best answers, I hope. He's traveled quite a few places and hunted a lot of animals, but today's focus is going to be on hunting turkeys. So, Caleb, can you name all the places that you've traveled to hunt turkeys?
So I've hunted Kansas, was the first state I ever out-of-state hunted. Tennessee, Kentucky, Nebraska, New York. I've hunted in each of those states, and Michigan, obviously. So going into choosing a state or whatever, or kind of falls into what do you most want? What are you most looking for? Are you looking for new terrain, the experiences that you want to fall into? Kansas for me was the first place that I picked just because I wanted to see more open country. Here in Michigan, it's all trees and more trees and big timber. And out there, it's not. It's a lot of open ground and cottonwood bottoms, and that was something that I wanted to experience a little bit different. But yeah, I hunted all those states, and this year we're doing Mississippi. We're going to do Texas, Maine, Indiana, and Michigan, because Michigan's my place of residence, so I hunt here every single year.
And a follow-up question on that. Now, believe it or not, a lot of people don't realize that there's more than one type of turkey.
Yeah, so obviously any turkey hunter or anybody who just hunts a little bit of turkeys knows the answers to this, but there's actually 6 different subspecies of turkey. 4 reside in the United States, the lower 48, and Hawaii. That's the eastern wild turkey, which is in Michigan. Everything east of the Mississippi is an eastern wild turkey, except for Florida. We have Osceolas in southern Florida. That's the only place an Osceola is found is in southern Florida. Then you have Rio Grandes, which is west of the Mississippi, a little further west than Iowa or Missouri or anywhere in there. That's mostly easterns on that end, closer to the river. But once you hit western Kansas, central, even some places in most central Kansas, you hit South Dakota, eastern Nebraska, and then Texas, Oklahoma. That's all Rio Grandes. And then the Merriam, which is anywhere from North Dakota, South Dakota. That's a western turkey. In Rios and Merriams interlock in a lot of areas. Washington State, Oregon, California. There's a lot of mixing and of Rio Grandes and Merriams. But Merriams are a mountain bird. So Rocky Mountains, a lot of that is a Merriam turkey. Western Nebraska, the Panhandle, and then the Black Hills in South Dakota and North Dakota, and Montana and Idaho, a lot of Merriams in those sections. And then also New Mexico, Utah, those areas, a lot of Merriams in there. And then the 2 other ones that were in Mexico, very small population in Arizona, but is a Goulds. They're in Mexico, and most hunters go to Mexico to travel down there to shoot them if they're going to go down there. And then the ocellated turkey, which is in southern Mexico and Yucatan Peninsula. So that's them are the 6 subspecies of wild turkey.
Now, compared to Michigan, there, aside from the color difference and how they act just a little bit, is there a difficulty range? Like when you're looking to go out of state hunt a turkey, where do you really want to think about starting? Is there a difficulty range on, I do not want to start there?
Definitely, if you're going to learn a turkey hunt, obviously your state of residence is going to be your number one. Wherever you're learning to turkey hunt is where you're always going to be the best. You're going to learn the most there. You're going to grind your teeth there. And for me, that's Michigan, obviously. Eastern wild turkeys in general, I would have to say, are the harder to hunt. I don't think anybody would, for the most part, most people wouldn't disagree with that. Eastern wild turkeys across the board are just harder to hunt than any other subspecies of turkey for the most part. Obviously, there's getting to other species, like, obviously going to Mexico and hunting ghouls. Just the traveling and figuring out the whole process of getting that hunt figured out is long and difficult. But for the most part, if I was a new turkey hunter traveling, I wouldn't want to go to a state that has low turkey population. So I would definitely do a lot of studying. Call your biologists at the state you're thinking about going, and they'll tell you, like, this is areas that you'll want to hunt, you'll want to cue in on. If you're a new turkey hunter, I definitely wouldn't recommend traveling out of state and turkey hunting until you actually have gotten to the point where you're a little bit confident in what you're doing as a turkey hunter. Otherwise, you're just going to waste your time most of the time.
Now, how easy are they able to get a hold of? Now, if you want to contact, someone who's already there
Yeah.
and someone who can give you information about the turkeys there, the population, how easy is that information to get a hold of?
So for me, it's in any hunters, it's easy. So you just call the game commission of the state that you're looking to hunt. Let's say we'll use Tennessee. Tennessee, you call the TWRA. You would call them. You ask to speak to a biologist, a turkey biologist. And almost every single organization, state to state, has a person that is their turkey guy, their bird guy, whether that be across the board, quail, pheasants, grouse, turkeys, whatever. Most of the time they have a bird guy, a biologist that studies populations and looks at that stuff. So you would call whatever state agency that you're wanting to hunt, ask them, hey, I want to speak to somebody about turkey hunting. I want to talk to a biologist. I want to talk to somebody that knows this stuff about turkeys. And generally, they will transfer you to his office. They know who they're looking for. Some states, like Nebraska, they have multiple. So it just depends on the area you're wanting to hunt, because Nebraska was broken into however many segments, like 6 segments or whatever, and there was a biologist for each segment. And I had to get a hold of a biologist that was in the segment that I wanted, and it was super easy. It's not hard at all. You just call the state agency, lady or guy who picks up the phone, say, hey, I want to talk to somebody about turkeys. And generally they will transfer you to the guy, because they'll generally have that number right beside them, like, all right, I'll transfer you to this guy. This is his name. He'll fill you in. Super simple process to get figured out.
So, aside from that, with the segments, what's a good way to scout? What are your resources that you use to scout out of state without actually having to go out there? You can always get a hold of people out there and ask them questions, but how do you get your eye on property that you want to hunt out there?
So when I'm traveling out of state, and probably most turkey hunters that travel out of state that are avid, they're going public land. So when I'm going to public land, I'm using e-scouting. I'm going to go to online. We live in a digital age. So obviously, and they're not a sponsor for us or anything, but OnX Maps is huge. And I think most hunters would agree. Hunt Stand's another one. Guys will use Hunt Stand, and it tells you boundary lines, tells you where public land is. Small sections of public that might only be 40 to 60 acres or whatever that you just normally wouldn't see, that aren't mapped off or posted, that are public land, it's on OnX. And that makes my scouting a lot easier. And I'm looking on that. I'm looking and queuing in on transition areas. I'm looking for private land fields that are bordered with public. Turkeys love to roost field edges. That's common knowledge. So if I'm looking at a map, I'm saying, okay, this is an area that I think turkeys would roost in. Now, has it been recently logged? Yes. So there's not old growth in there, so probably not going to have a lot of turkeys roosted in there. Now, is there old growth timber? Is it big, nice big trees? Is it pine, oak, whatever? Birds like to roost in that area. In the northeast, they like pine. In my area where I'm at, big maples and oaks are a normal roost for them. So we cue in on that kind of stuff. We look for that on a map, what we know to be effective areas of targeting turkeys and finding turkeys. If you're going out of state, you got to find birds. So that's the number one. We got to find them. So starting off with your map is huge, and pinging everything that you look at that says, okay, that could have turkeys in it. And obviously, experience will tell you a lot of that. Experience will tell you, all right, this is where I need to go. This is what I need to look for. And then obviously for younger turkey hunters, learning, it's gathering that experience. Maybe tagging along with someone who knows when it comes to out of state. Maybe the first time you go out of state, you don't go by yourself or go with you and a buddy who don't really know what they're doing, but go with someone who knows. Especially going out west, that's a whole other ball game out there. But obviously, anywhere you go out of state, you're spending a lot of money. You're going into, you're putting forth a lot of money to buy a non-resident tag. You don't want to go and be completely unsuccessful in what you're doing. So going out with your best foot forward and in scouting, e-scouting is so important. And obviously, once you get there, boots on the ground, put on miles, look for birds, listen for birds. Turkeys are not quiet generally, weather permitting, and you'll be able to find birds. But definitely turn on your maps. Don't ignore that stuff. Spend the money and get that stuff because it's worth every dime.
Now, I heard you mention tags. So with each state, I know there's probably going to be a completely different a completely different way that you got to do this.
Yeah.
Some states you may just have to, give them a little bit of your information, buy the tag, and boom, it's over. And I'm gonna guess that they're not all that easy.
No, so obviously my place of residence, Michigan, I just have to show an ID and boom, I have my tag for the most part. I spend very little money for the amount of tags that I have to get, and it's done. Easiest state that I've ever bought tags was Nebraska. It was just, it was getting the tag bought and then just printing it off online. You had to buy a hunting license and then your turkey tag. 90% of states probably, there's not just a turkey tag you have to buy. You got to buy a hunting license. And a lot of time you look at your tag and you'll say, oh, they only want $50 for an out-of-state turkey license. That's cheap. But where they get you is the hunting license, where it's $200 or $150 or whatever it is. So that's where a lot of states will get you. Definitely studying and looking at what your tag costs are going to be also probably will affect what state you're going to. And obviously, staying closer to home is another one. Tags are just, it just depends. And there's a lot of states right now that are going over to where you have to show a hunter safety certificate. A lot of guys don't realize that when they're going out of state. You got to show that stuff now. And it didn't used to be that way. Even 5-6 years ago, it wasn't that way. I drive down to Tennessee and give them my ID and then sign an affidavit that said, hey, I have taken hunter safety, and boom, done. You got your tags. Same thing with New York. It was the same way. You just had to.
So now you have to present that. You have to have evidence that your hunter safety certificate.
Yeah, you're certified, and that's a lot of states are going to that. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. And there's a lot of hunters that just, they don't know. They didn't know that when they went out, and then they had to hurry up and print one off or figure out how to download it on their phone or pull it up. And
right, and it's usually pretty easy to prove and get it back. But for people that, they took hunter safety, 13, 15 years ago, even 20 years ago, and they haven't been keeping up with anything the DNR have been posting.
Yeah.
Or they haven't been keeping up with everything that you need to have nowadays, and they go out there and now it's been 20 years since they've even thought about their hunter safety certificate. It's been gone. Maybe it got lost. Maybe it was destroyed. And they have no idea how to get it back. So it's a big bummer. It's killed a lot of hunts, I'm sure.
I mean, for just a general, way of going out, a lot of states, even if you don't have your hunter safety certificate, they do have an affidavit system where you would sign it saying, yes, I do have a hunter safety certificate. I am certified that I can hunt. And even some states will let you just show your tag. Like, say I'm in Michigan. That's what happened in New York. My wife actually didn't have some of the stuff that she needed, and she just showed off a hunting license from Michigan, and she ended up, the guy was like, all right, I see that you're a licensed hunter in Michigan. It's not a youth tag. And then we were able to sign an affidavit and get her license in New York. Same thing with my dad in Nebraska. Same thing. He had to sign an affidavit to be able to get his tags printed off. Just because he couldn't find his hunter safety certificate and couldn't find it online, because some states, as crummy as it sounds, there are people that just don't do their job sometimes, even in the DNR or state level, that for outdoorsmen, they don't punch things in correctly or whatever, and then they look on their tagging. I mean, as in Michigan anyway, you can look up their DNR Hunt Fish app and look up your hunter safety certificate. It should be right on your page when you enter in your information, your driver's license number and stuff. It should be there. But I've actually had quite a few buddies that open it up and they've taken hunter safety. They have a certificate in their hand, but it doesn't show online that they actually have ever even taken it. So that's something that definitely to be aware of. Check it out. Look, make sure you have it. Make sure you check your state regulations of where you're going, because obviously that stuff it will affect you, and it can turn a hunt sour pretty quickly if you get there to go buy a tag. You're excited. You've got everything figured out, and they're like, hey, I need this, and you're like, I don't have that. Well, now you're waiting for however long to get something faxed to you, or maybe you're just totally screwed. You don't have the option. So definitely look into that before you leave the parking lot or your driveway to head that way.
So my next question, I'm not talking about the gun. I'm not talking about the gear, because you more than likely already have it. If you're traveling out of state to go turkey hunting, we're just going to go on the basis that you've turkey hunted in your local residence and you've got a good grasp of what it is. So let's say you've got your gun already.
Yep.
You've got your clothes,
okay,
all your camo. You've got a vehicle. You don't got to buy a vehicle to go out of state. So you got your vehicle right. Once you've hunted around here and you've got basically everything you need to go hunting, what are additional costs?
So obviously gas. That's first and foremost. Gasoline prices are expensive. They're going up every day. So You've got to plan for your gasoline. Other states go up and down. I mean, obviously, so Michigan, every time we drive through Illinois is 40 cents more expensive than Michigan. As soon as you leave the state, it just jumps 40 cents. So that's stuff to be aware of. And obviously, Michigan is way up north for me. So as I'm coming down south, I'm always driving south. So I have to be conscious of the states that I'm going through. And gas is a number one killer for me. I have to plan for that.
It's probably something that you should really think about. Make a checklist of everything you're going to need, and when it comes to gas, when it comes to food, when it comes to extra expenses, you should really have a little more than what you planned on in your budget. Always have a little extra emergency money.
Yeah.
Because let's say you're out there and your tire goes flat, and you only accounted for what you thought could go wrong, and you get just enough for it, and then something major happens. I'm sure you've had quite a few mistakes happen.
Going off of that, for this last year, headed to Oklahoma to go and turkey hunt, and transmission goes out 2 hours from our destination. Ooh. I'm 16 hours from home at this point, so giant kick to the knees, so to speak, for my hunt. Obviously we're done. Truck's not shifting. We were lucky to be able to. We broke down on a turnpike. Transmission's gone. Get taken into a gas station by a tow truck, which also, by the way, when they know you're not resident in a state, they gouge you for prices for towing and stuff. They see you're not, and they just gouge you. I got towed 21 miles and got charged over $400, almost $500. It was $470-something to go 20-something miles on a tow truck. Stuff like that you don't plan for. And obviously, nothing's going to make you be able to plan for a transmission going out of state, obviously. And that's probably the exception, not the rule, for going out of state and having a breakdown. Flat tires are going to probably happen, but there's other stuff that might happen.
Right, there's expenses you can plan for.
Yeah, absolutely. So, have a spare tire with you. I would say even making sure you have extra fluids inside of your truck and stuff, because I actually seen a gentleman in Nebraska, his oil pump actually wasn't working on his truck, and it was actually not sealing, and it was just pumping. It was just popping off. Like, it was weird. And he actually had to go and buy a new seal for it and stuff and get it fixed. He couldn't buy a new part, but he actually got a new seal and actually put it on and made it work. So stuff like that happens when we're traveling. When you're going out of state, that's the stuff that's unforeseen, that you're just going to get hit with periodically. Now, I've traveled 5 years turkey hunting now. I've been doing this for 5 years, traveling around, and never had an issue until this last year with a vehicle. But it was a big issue. I never even had a flat. And when that happened, it sucked. But, I mean, it's all you can do. And my father-in-law actually ended up coming back all the way down to Oklahoma, 16 and a half hours down there, loading my truck on a flatbed and driving it all the way back. Very grateful for that. But I had the option, and not everybody's going to have that option. Another expense, definitely, for going out of state is lodging. Where are you going to lodge? I mean, so a lot of guys are sleeping out of the truck. I mean, lots of people are doing that. So
it's perfectly acceptable, but
if you're doing that,
if you're gonna travel out of state and you have the funds to do it, it's probably better to get somewhere close to where you're hunting, somewhere nice. You don't want to make your trip miserable, but it really depends on your situation.
I think that's why a lot of the bigger turkey hunters are sleeping out of the truck now, because they can sit right in the parking lot. You find a bird, you gobble one, you sit right in the parking lot. Nobody's beating you to that spot now. Nobody's gonna beat you. So that is why a lot of guys are doing that. Now, obviously, not everybody's going to do that. Some people are going to go out with their wives. Some people are going to go out when maybe your wife's a trooper. Not everybody has a wife like mine where she's going to go out and sleep in the truck, because that's, it's done, it's happened. We do that kind of stuff.
Right, you're lucky if you can even get a wife that will go with you.
Right, so it does happen that way. And there are a lot of women out there that love to hunt too, love to travel to turkey hunt, but not all women like to sleep in the truck, and not all men like to sleep in the truck. I know my dad, he won't sleep in the truck. There's no way. He's not sleeping in a truck. You're going to get a hotel, or you're going to have somewhere where he can sleep in a bed. Obviously, I'm 25 years old. It's not a big deal for me to sleep in the truck. I'll wake up stiff as a board and then stretch it out and keep going, So, lodging is something you have to think about. What are you willing to do? What are you willing to lose? What are you willing to live without for that time that you're there? And what are you willing to not live without? So, I mean, obviously, length of your hunt. How long are you going to be there? How long are you going to turkey hunt? How long do you think it's going to take for you to get onto birds? Obviously, have you hunted here before? Obviously, if I'm going to go back to Kentucky, I have a pretty good base of exactly where I know birds are. Nebraska, same way. Tennessee, same thing. I know where birds were last time I was there. I probably can go back and get pretty darn close next time. Like, I can be pretty close to their front door. Now, if I've never hunted a state, I'm going in blind. I don't know. I don't know where that bird's at. So, a first time going into a state, maybe I want to make sure I have that 5-6 days of hunting, 7 days of hunting. I personally, I don't like to go on a hunt out of state where I have anything less than 5 days. And if I've been to a state before, maybe that's different. Maybe then you can bump it down to the 3 days. But most of the time, people are going out of state. They're doing a week. They're doing 5 days to a week of hunting, and that's what a lot of guys are doing. So you have to expenses go into all of that. Water, another thing. I mean, obviously we can buy bottled water wherever we want. Gas stations or whatever. That's another expense. So a lot of guys are actually taking big water cans and filling them full of water at parks or whatever to have the water for themselves. Cooking, pans. If you're going to bring pans with you, oil.
It also ties into your lodging. Are you going to be staying at a hotel that serves you 3 meals a day? Are you going to be...
Most guys aren't doing that.
Right. Are you going to be going out to eat? Like, are you going to be close enough to a town and you got a good enough friends with you that you're all going to go out to eat every night after the hunt? Or are you it's just going to be you?
Yeah, everybody's situation is a lot different.
The cost really, really depends on what kind of hunt you're really looking to do.
So coming from me, obviously, blue collar turkey hunter. My vacation days go to this. This is what we do. So I don't have the money to spend on hotels and expensive places to stay and all that stuff that makes, a stay great where you're like, oh, this is a vacation. I'm not. I'm grinding turkeys. That's what I'm doing. I'm hunting. That's what I'm doing when I go out. So I'm not going to go and stay in a hotel. Maybe I grab a hotel for a night to shower or whatever. Maybe campsites, you go to a campsite and pay $10 to shower or whatever. There's lots of places that allow you to do that, especially in the South. Them Southern boys, they got it made when it comes to going travel and turkey hunting because they got all that, great amenities in their campsites and stuff. We don't have that up here quite so much. I would definitely say the general turkey hunter that's going up, he's not staying in a hotel. He's not in. Probably 70% of them are probably sleeping in a tent. Honestly, if we're really getting their campsites and tents, a lot of guys are doing that. And then probably if we're going 70%, I'd say another 20% are sleeping in the truck, and then maybe 10% are sleeping in a hotel if we're traveling, going out of state. Now, if it's a big deal, like, oh, we've been doing this 20 years. We've been going down here driving down to, Kansas or whatever. We've been hunting here 20 years, and we get together, and there's 6 of us that do it every year. Okay, now it makes sense. I'm doing a B&B every year. I'm doing, I have my ground. I have my private land that I hunt or whatever. But guys that are on public, we stay mobile. We don't have time to be...
You really got to be the first one out there.
Yeah, well, we don't have time to be sitting on one spot and getting stuck on one bird. You can't do that. So we go from one area of public to another. We'll go, maybe I hunt this place of public that's here, and then I look at my forecast and it says, and I'm not really on birds, and my forecast says, oh, it's going to pour rain here for the next 3 days. But 3 hours north in another part of the state where there's another big piece of public or whatever, oh, well, it's not going to rain there at all. It's going to be decent weather. So I'm driving 3 hours north. As a traveling turkey hunter, that's something that we have to be aware of is being able to go up there. And that's, again, it files into your cost, your gas while you're there. You're not just going to sit there and not drive around while you're there. The gas to get down there is one thing, gas to get back is another. But while we're there, we're still moving. We're still going. So definitely, for me, gasoline's a huge one. And then obviously food and lodging and anything after that maybe you want to bring in as extra.
So, I know you're talking about hunting public land and you're talking about staying mobile, but that's not the only type of hunting you've done, I believe. So when you go up there, let's take Nebraska, for instance. Where did you and your wife stay there? So
we had a bigger group there. We had five people go, and we decided to rent off a ranch house, basically. It was an Airbnb.
But that was right there on the property you guys were hunting.
So the ranch, we were allowed to rent the ranch. We actually rented the ranch off to hunt turkeys on as well. And there was a lot of turkeys on the ranch. But we also hunted public. We didn't just stay on the ranch. We hunted a lot. So we had the B&B for a week, and we could only hunt the ranch for 3 days or whatever it was. So
you guys used that more of a base, but you did both hunting styles while you were down there.
Yeah, I stayed constantly mobile. I did hunt. The public land was only 20 minutes or 15 minutes away from the B&B. It wasn't very far. And this ranch, it wasn't small. It was a big ranch. It was not a guided hunt. It was It was just
A guided hunt's a completely different
It-
story.
it was-
That's another completely different cost. If that's
Oh, yeah,
if you want to do
absolutely.
a guided hunt, that's a lot different.
we're talking anywhere from $1,000 to almost over $2,000 if we're talking about Florida. That's over $2,000 if you want to hunt Florida for Osceolas, but or Kansas Rios or whatever. That's $1,700 with lodging and whatever. So, but that's again though. There's your factor in with lodging and stuff too. When you're paying for that, you're paying for your hunt and your lodging coming in at $1,700. So I mean, if you want a flat rate where you don't got to factor everything, that's fine.
Right, yeah, that takes a lot of your food costs out. That
Right.
takes a lot of your lodging.
But I went to Nebraska, and with 5 guys going, I spent and with not including tags. Obviously, tags I don't factor into the main cost of the hunt because I have to get tags to be able to go. So, but I don't really factor that in personally. But I spent a little over $700 to go to Nebraska, hunt for a week, and come back. With between 5 guys, splitting a B&B, renting the ranch, everything that factored into that, I spent about a little over $700.
Which would have only been half of the price for just you to take a guided hunt.
Oh yeah, just one
Right,
person.
so it's so much different depending on if you want a guided hunt, whether you don't.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of factors.
And most turkey hunters probably aren't doing guided if they're traveling out of state for that. I mean, obviously, if you're wanting a slam, a lot of guys. If I'm going to Florida, I'm hunting Osceola. I don't want to do public in Florida. Bottom line, I really don't want to do public. It is trafficked down there hard. Those birds are dodging people everywhere, and it's doable. People do it every year. It's doable. Personally, myself, I don't want to do that. Now, other states, I'll do public in a heartbeat. Like Mississippi, I'm doing public. I'm going, and in Texas, I'm not doing public. Again, I'm doing a rent. I'm renting a property basically to be able to go and hunt Texas.
These are all things that you should really, really focus on trying to figure out before you pick a place to go, even especially if it's your first time.
Yeah, and again though, also renting a place, if you find private that is rentable, you can find that a lot cheaper if you look. If you know where to look, you know how to do it, you can find it pretty cheap. Now, if you're going the direction of going down and door knocking, that's another option. And honestly, it can be very successful. I've door knocked in every state that I've ever traveled to. I've gotten some yeses and some nos in every state, except for Tennessee. Tennessee, you guys down there play hardball with the old turkey hunters now. You always don't let nobody hunt. But everywhere else, I've never had a problem getting farms permissions to be able to go out and hunt turkeys. So definitely keep that in mind going out and checking out farms, knocking on doors. Most guys are going to let you hunt for the most part. In my experience, they do let you hunt. So yeah, all that stuff just factors into what you're going to do and your cost of going.
All right, so I'm gonna start off with I shoot. It's a tactical turkey 535 12 gauge. It's a Remington.
It's a Mossberg.
Mossberg. Yes.
Yeah.
New gun. Just got it from Caleb. Haven't shot it yet, but that's what I plan on hunting turkeys. I've heard amazing things about the gun, but I don't have any experience with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's another thing. You don't want to take a gun on a hunt that is so precious to you, and you've spent so much money. You don't. Someone just hands you a gun that doesn't look safe, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to take that. So, Caleb, what gun do you use when you take out of state?
So I run the same gun everywhere I go for the most part. I'm running a Mossberg 940 Turkey Pro, red dot sight on the top. I'm running a double extra full choke, Carlson's choke out of the end of it. And that's my setup. I run that in Michigan. I run that in Nebraska. I run that everywhere I go. That's my gun. I've shot a lot of other guns. I've went out of state with other guns, and that's the gun that I use now. That'll be my build for the foreseeable future. Obviously, when it comes to your firearm, most guys that are going out of state, they're not going out and grabbing some new fancy fandangle gun or whatever. They're running they're running the gun they got at home. So whether that be a Mossberg Maverick 88, if they're running their old Remington 870. Honestly, there's probably been more ducks and turkeys killed with a Remington 870 than most guns anywhere. You can run anything you want. Benelli's, you can run 20 gauge. I mean, honestly, with TSS.
With TSS, it just makes it a completely different ball game.
TSS has turned a 410 into a 40-yard turkey killer, and has turned a 20 gauge into every bit of a 12 gauge that used to be with lead. And 12 gauge is just an animal. I mean, I've killed turkeys with, I try not to shoot them very far, but I've killed turkeys in Nebraska. I killed one at 52 yards in Nebraska, and that's a pretty good poke for me. I don't generally shoot them that far, but obviously out of state, you're in a whole different ball game with that. You're sitting here spending all this money to go there. You're not going to sit here and play games with turkeys. If a turkey's going to hang up on you for 50 something yards, you want to be able to have the capability of taking that bird, and TSS does that for me.
Right.
And the
So
gun
you,
that I
so
have
you
does
would
that for
rather
me.
get the better ammo, even if it's a lot more expensive. You would rather get the best ammo that you know of when you're traveling out of state.
So, I mean, obviously it's all in confidence, what you have confidence with. There's guys that run nitros, Remington Nitro mags at turkeys out of state. They don't care. As long as the pattern's good in your gun. You got to pattern your gun. You have to. It doesn't matter what shell you run. They all kill turkeys. It just matters what your gun likes. And my personal belief is TSS is just such a more superior shell. It doesn't really matter what type of TSS you can run. You can run anything from, federal TSS to some of the smaller online loads like Verdict or Rogue or Boss or Apex, and they all kill turkeys. They all do. It's just, what is your gun like?
And what your choke has a big factor into that too.
Absolutely,
They all
does,
have
yeah.
different patterns.
It shapes up differently what your gun likes, because it's like a fingerprint. Their shell types or what they shoot, it is a fingerprint for a gun. So what goes through your gun might not shoot good out of my gun. It's just not going to. So it just kind of depends on what you think is going to run good out of your gun, and up to you to put in the work to pattern it all.
Right. How many chokes have you ever gone through for one gun?
So the gun that I currently am running, I went through 4 chokes to get it figured out which one I wanted and liked the best. My older turkey gun that I ran, the one that I actually sold you, I ran that with 5 or 6 different chokes, and I didn't like, personally myself, I found a choke that worked great out of the gun. I didn't like the recoil out of the gun, so that turned me off to that gun. But out of my A5, my Browning A5, I ran a Kicks Gobbling Thunder, which was a fantastic choke. I love that choke. It throws an amazing pattern. I killed turkeys in Kansas and Kentucky with that gun. It was an absolutely fantastic gun. Than the choke that came through it, but again, it was pattern testing all the shells and all these chokes. And I'm not running just when I have a choke. When I buy a choke, I'm running any shell that I can get my hands on that's a turkey shell. That I see a turkey shell, I haven't patterned that, so I'm going to pattern it. And I come out, when it comes to turkey season, I have the shell in that gun and that choke combo will shoot the best. And so my current gun, I mean, I'm confident with it at 70 yards. I would say I could kill a turkey easily at 70 yards. I do. I believe that with TSS. Do I do that? No, absolutely not. I will not shoot a bird out there like that. Now, stuff happens. If I'm with somebody and they shoot a bird and it's hobbling away and it's getting away and it's trying, it's got a broken wing or whatever, because it does happen. He shoots a bird and it's getting away and it's at 70 yards getting away from me. Well, I'm going to shoot him. And I want the confidence, if that happens, I want the confidence that bird is going to die. I don't want to sit here and let a wounded bird run around through the woods. I think every hunter can agree with that. I think every hunter can get behind that, where you say, I want my confidence level with my gun to be at a long range. I want it at a long range, because anything after that, closer, is easy. I can kill a bird at 20 yards. If I know I can kill him at 70, I know I definitely can kill him at 40. I know he's deader than a doornail at 20.
It's all in your confidence level, and
yeah.
And you can't get that confidence level unless you put in the work.
Yeah, you got to shoot your gun.
Yeah, you went through 5 chokes on one gun. If you tell somebody who doesn't turkey hunt that you spent $100 on one choke just for you didn't like it, so you returned it or you put it up for sale and went and bought the next one and didn't like that one either.
Well, I'm buying these all at the same time. I'm not going through 5 at random times. I'm buying 5 chokes.
So you get all 5, then you pick the best that you like out of them.
I'm
there's
shooting,
a good one.
Yeah, I'm shooting these chokes and I'm saying, okay, this choke, I'm doing it maybe the same day even. I'm like, okay, I'm throwing this choke in the gun. I'm running these 6-7 different brands of ammunition through it at 6 or 7 different targets at 40 yards. Then I'm popping the next choke out. I'm running the next one, whatever I like. And when it comes down to it, when I look at the paper and I say, all right, this bird is dead. This bird is dead. This bird is dead as well. This bird, I don't know. That looks a little fishy. Guess what? That choke is not going in my gun come turkey season. I'm not playing with that. So, and I keep doing that. And what choke do I feel the most confident in when I level that gun onto a bird and that gun goes off? I want to see that bird flopping at the end of it. Now, there's always going to be shooter error. I'm always going to have the opportunity to miss. I've missed turkeys. Everyone's missed turkeys. If you haven't turkey hunted long enough. But my gun is not going to be the reason that I missed that bird. That my gun's not going to be the reason that bird's crippled. It's going to be my human fault. It's going to be my fault. It's not going to be the gun.
You would rather it be your human error rather than mechanical decisions.
Yeah, my equipment is not going to be the reason why I fail. That's absolutely not going to be why something goes bad. I mean, obviously it's equipment. It's good. Stuff happens. The gun might fire. Something might break. I
Have
can't.
you ever
I can't
had-
avoid that.
Have you ever had a gun break when you were out of state?
I have. I have actually had a gun one time that had the firing pin got jacked up in it, out of state, and I had to run a backup gun. That happened in Kansas. That's actually why I started running the A5 in Kansas, was because of the gun breaking. And obviously, equipment error like that, there's nothing I can do to prevent that if it happens. It's going to happen. It will happen at times. That's not my fault. That's not the gun. That's just wear and tear. And wear and tear is going to break a gun once in a while. It's just going to happen. We do our best to make sure it doesn't happen, but nobody in their right mind who's just traveling to turkey hunt is going to go, you know what, before I go to this out-of-state hunt, I'm going to replace the spring or whatever in my firing pin. I'm just going to replace that because
It's just
happen.
unreasonable,
It could happen, so I'm going to just replace it because make sure it doesn't happen. How often does it happen? It doesn't usually happen. It doesn't happen. How many shells get run through a waterfowl gun? Thousands. Thousands and thousands of guns from a waterfowl hunter that loves to hunt. And he shoots a lot of shells, let's say guides. And how often does a spring break in their, for their firing pin? It doesn't happen often. So as a turkey hunter, you don't expect it to happen with your gun,
Right, you're taking a total of like 5 turkeys a year.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, or some guys are doing more, some guys are doing less. Maybe you only shoot 1 turkey a year.
Right.
But obviously that's something I couldn't account for, and it did happen. And I was glad that I brought a backup gun. And that brings me to another, point.
Do you carry a backup gun now when you go out of state?
There's always a backup gun in the truck.
Gotcha.
There will always be a backup gun in the truck, cased up underneath this, whatever. It's always there.
Ready to go.
Yeah, if I have the gun that my primary goes down, my backup gun I'm going to have just as much confidence in as my primary. I want to make sure when I pull that backup gun out of the case that, okay, this thing's going to kill turkey. I have no problem. I'm still in the game. And
right.
Yeah, I'm glad I brought a backup gun. That was kind of my own. Like, I was worried something might happen all the time, so I was like, I got to have a backup gun. I got to make sure. So I brought it, and I was glad that I did. And that's something that will always happen. Whether I bring up a backup for, whether it's a 410, whether it's a 20 gauge, whether it's another 12 gauge, there's always a backup firearm going with me when I go out of state. And I'm glad that that's something that I've always done because it did save me in Kansas.
Now something that's not commonly really talked about, and I believe, how do you travel with a gun when you're going out of state?
Yeah, so obviously, when you're in state, what's legal for you to travel might not be legal in the next state. There are some states that allow you to drive around with uncased firearms. Uncased firearms underneath your seats, whatever. It's legal some places. Sometimes it's legal to just have in the bed of the truck that's not cased. In the state of Michigan, it is not legal to have any firearm in the vehicle unless you have a CPL that's uncased. So guns stay cased when you're traveling in the state of Michigan. Now that's something I've taken everywhere. I think that's a safe thing to do. Generally, it's going in a case, a hard case, and it's getting put on the bottom of the pile of clothes and everything else that goes in the truck, and that's where it's riding. Shells I always keep in a separate area from the gun. I always put them in either maybe behind the seat or underneath the seat or in some kind of packaging somewhere, or maybe in my bag.
Yeah, when I waterfowl hunt with you, you keep them in ammo pouches or the old style ammo cans, the containers.
And
that's a good way to travel with them.
Yeah, I would say that's an effective way of traveling, especially as a waterfowl hunter. Yeah, you definitely would travel that way. Turkey hunting is a little different in the fact that we keep our shells a lot of time in the box. We're not dumping them out of the box into other containers or whatever. We're keeping them in the truck and then going from the truck and we're taking 5 out of the box and putting them in our vest and 3 in the gun and we're going, and maybe 2 as a backup or 3 as a backup in our vest. Whatever you're confident in, whatever your system is. Everybody has a different system. Generally, I keep 3 in the gun and then 3 on me somewhere. But traveling with ammunition and guns is usually pretty simple, state to state. Just lock them in a hard case, travel with them. That's generally legal everywhere you go, so it makes sense to just travel that way with a gun. And also there is some places too. You gotta some states do require you to have a trigger guard or an action lock in them when you're traveling.
So, next thing, preference on calls. Do you have a brand that you tend to stick to? Like when you walk through the store and you're like, all right, my calls are a little worn down, or maybe I don't know where they are. Maybe I lost them before this trip, or maybe you just want to know, like, I have a new call that I can break in while on the way up to this trip. Do you have a brand that when you walk in the store, you're like, this is what I'm looking for?
So I would say I would consider myself an avid turkey hunter. I generally stay away from mass-produced calls. I don't like buying calls out of the grocery store or Walmart or Cabela's for the most part. Mouth calls is one thing. You get one mouth call with a cut in it, you pretty much used them all. If it's the same cut, it sounds pretty well the same depending on the cut you use. Now, I would say pot calls are not all made the same. I like pecker record game calls. I really do love the sound of them. I think that they sound fantastic. I think they're raspy. I think they're loud. I like those calls. I've always thought that they were an effective call for me. They're raspy. They break wind really well. That's an online call company. You're not going to find that in a store for the most part. Maybe down south. It is a southern brand, guys. I don't know what state he's in. I would like to say Georgia or Mississippi, but I'm probably not right on that, so don't hold me to that. But he does, or maybe it's Alabama. I don't know. It's one of those southern states down there. But he is a really good call maker, and I really like his stuff. I thought that stuff has always been a really good sounding call. Box calls. I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I think my favorite box call I've ever had isn't just a local Amish made box call.
I've heard the Amish make some pretty darn good turkey calls if you can find the right ones.
Yeah, and for those of you that might be listening, not in Amish country, here in our area anyway, we got a lot of Amish. So they do a lot of woodworking. Every dirt road, and they make a lot of good turkey calls, and I like their box calls. I just do. I think it sounds good, and box calls are one and the same. When I go out of state, I'm not running a box call very often. I once in a great while. In Michigan, I run a box call a lot.
Right, but local hunting. You run a different setup.
Just because
slightly.
Just because I do things differently at home. I'm hunting private land. I'm not hunting public. Everybody.
Less pressure. You haven't spent a whole bunch of money on this out-of-state hunt that you're traveling to, and you want everything to be perfect.
And I don't have to sound the best when I'm hunting. One of my private land farms here. I don't have to sound the best. I don't feel like I have to sound the best.
You're not competing with other hunters.
Oh yeah, and every Joe Schmo can run a box call, right? So if a guy comes in, he's like, I'm not confident calling turkeys. Like he runs a box call. So them turkeys hear a lot of box calls. So I run a pot call a lot. I run a mouth call a lot. And again, a lot of guys run a pot call. A lot of guys, that's something they run a lot. Now, not every turkey hunter is effective with a mouth call. And if you want to kill turkeys in public land out of state, I will say you got to get good with a mouth call. There's a lot of guys you even watch on YouTube that when they run a mouth call, it sounds awful. It's just bad. But turkeys respond to it, and they kill birds, obviously. But if a bird's heard 13 million people calling with this same cadence and style or whatever, and then there's that one dude that sounds way better than the rest,
right?
What's the odds of him firing that bird up? You
can always kill a turkey with or without a call. It may significantly be harder, but the better you are, the better your chances.
Yeah, and I would say calling is a major part of being good on a call and being fluent, understanding cadence and stuff is super important, right?
That's with most birds.
I would definitely say location is better. Location is key when it comes to turkeys. You can be the best caller in the world, but you ain't on birds. You ain't on them. You ain't killing them. So again, that's where your scouting comes in. Got to make sure you scout and calls.
The price could also affect that. If you're looking, like, let's say you walk into Jay's and you see like a $20 goose call. Excuse me. You can get that call, and it's gonna sound absolutely horrible compared to the one that's $30 more. That sounds absolutely amazing.
Let's jump it even further. Going from a $50 call, let's jump up to a $200 call. Right. We make that leap.
You get what you pay for when it comes to hunting.
Yeah.
If you're paying for, let's use our guns for instance. I shoot a Stoker.
Yeah.
A normal Stoker new runs about what?
$800
bucks
yeah,
around
$800,
there.
$700, yeah, something like that.
Versus your A5.
Yeah, we're talking a $2,000 gun.
Exactly. That's bare. That's not.
Well,
it depends on who you get it from, but
yeah, obviously, and that's not used. That's new. We're talking a Wicked Wing, so different ball game. Different guns, different strokes for different folks, I suppose,
Yep.
So,
and his gun runs amazing. I've seen Caleb drop that in the water and then use it as a paddle and then continue to shoot ducks with it the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And it just worked with, never misses a beat.
Shout out to Browning. Shout out to Browning for making a gun that runs that good, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't there's a lot of guns that probably can do that. I mean, but it's a fantastic waterfowl gun. If you're looking for a good waterfowl gun, I can't recommend an A5 enough, really.
Versus my Stoger, love the Stoger, works absolutely amazing. But I know that if I do not clean that gun after every single hunt, I will not get a second shell out of that gun without it catching, or it's not going to eject it right, or something's going to go wrong if I don't take very precise care of that gun. Yeah. That's just the difference in the quality. I mean, he spent over $1,000 more than I did, and you get what you pay for in guns. Same thing with calls.
I think it's important to mention too that I bought that gun when I was very single and working my butt off. So
yeah, yep.
we're obviously a young guy who wants to go out and buy a nice piece of equipment. I mean, you see how many kids nowadays are running around in Sika gear, right? The same kids that cry about having to pay a lot of money for a gun or whatever, or they don't. Some of them don't, obviously. Some of them buy really nice guns. But, if you're spending over $1,000 on an outfit, you may as well go and buy, a nice gun. I cheaped out on clothes, and I went expensive on a gun. I mean, I did, and I liked what I did, and I still had that A5, and I've shot turkeys with it. I've hunted everything from small game to turkeys to waterfowl and all of its shapes and facets with that gun. I love that gun. Is it my main gun? It will never be my main turkey gun. It will never be my turkey build. It is the backup gun. It is the gun that goes with me if something goes wrong.
But when it comes to hunting waterfowl,
that is the main gun.
That is the main gun.
That is the main gun. What is the backup in the truck? A Stoger. It is. I'm not my backup gun. Do I have confidence in it? Yes, because I have it clean. It's a backup. It will function if I need it to. Do I want to revert to my backup? No. Have I ever had a problem with my Browning? No. Now,
but it's in the back of your mind that if something ever happens,
if it happens,
you have a backup.
Yeah, I don't want to have to leave the marsh or whatever on my day off to go and pick up and go get another gun. Same thing when I'm traveling. You gotta make sure you have the backup. You definitely get what you pay for, especially with calls, and that's what we're where we kind of got off on the bunny trail about guns, but same thing with calls. So if I'm buying a custom call from a guy who sells his calls for $100, I mean, the quality is generally going to get better than a mass-produced call. Obviously, you have your Woodhavens and stuff that make really good calls, and I mean, guys knock it, but dude, Primos, a lot of turkeys die every year from a Primos pot call or a Primos mouth call. Bottom line, they do. So it just depends on how a guy uses it, but obviously, in general, for me, my experience is that the more expensive of a call that I'm buying, the better the quality is to me, and the sound that I can produce with it is better. So that's what I tend to stick with when it comes to turkey calls. I go a little more of an expensive route, but I'm not a rich guy.
Right. But we're not saying that you have to go out and it's your first time turkey hunt, even first time goose hunting for me, right?
Yeah.
I went out and bought a $12 goose call. It sounded absolutely horrible, but it got me the basics down for when I went and upgraded to my favorite call. Not sponsored, the Tim Grounds. That is my favorite goose call.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a last flight guy. I have been.
Everyone's got their own preferences and there's different qualities.
So when it comes to turkey calls, I'm a really serious turkey hunter. I am. So I want the nicest stuff that I can get that I think is the nicest. And that's, again, preference. So maybe a guy thinks the Woodhaven is the nicest call he can get and he likes it. That's what he runs. For me personally, I like a Pecker Record game call. I love that call. I love the sound of it. They both come in close to the same price point as a Woodhaven, but to me, I think the quality is better, and I like it better, and that's why I could go with the Pecker Record call.
Now, moving on to close.
Okay.
It obviously depends on where you're going, the terrain, the weather. Around here in Michigan versus out of state, do you change what you wear? Do you change the type of camo? And obviously for clothes, the price really, it's hard to go off a price with clothes because, I mean, you could get a full outfit for $40 and it'd be the best outfit for around here, and it means absolutely nothing, let's say in Nebraska. So what do you go with that?
So I'm going to be totally honest. I don't switch anything when it comes to camouflage. I'm a mossy oak greenleaf man. I have been for a long time. I will be for a very long time after this. I wear mossy oak greenleaf. If it comes in greenleaf, I'm wearing it. And for turkeys, now that is different than for everything else. But for turkeys, I'm a mossy oak greenleaf guy. And if I didn't have greenleaf, or if I had to revert to anything else, it would be bottomland. I would go to mossy oak bottomland. That's what I would go with. And them are the two turkey hunting patterns that I think are the best, that I like. Obviously, you can kill turkeys in anything. You can kill turkeys in blue jeans if you really wanted to.
What I wear is, I mean, Walmart. I went to Walmart and
Right,
I
yeah.
bought me a nice, warm,
Yeah.
Realtree camo with an extra jacket that I could throw on, and I've killed the turkey.
And that's probably
deer.
90% of turkey hunters, really.
Right.
It probably is 90% of turkey hunters that are, they go to Walmart, buy a piece of camouflage, and go. But in general, the traveling turkey hunter is not going to be that Walmart turkey hunter.
Right.
A lot of the time, he's that.
You want that. You've got specific things that you want.
I have things that I like. I
Right.
would say and I would say that every turkey hunter has their preference, right? So some guys wear Sika gear. I'm not going to sit here and knock Sika gear. So let's say some guys like Sika, some guys like Kuyu, some guys like mossy oak, some guys like Realtree. It's just preference, and I love mossy oak. I like the color. I do. I'm a sucker for that green leaf color. I like it. And for when interesting warm, obviously maybe I'll throw a hoodie on underneath of it, but my top shirt, whatever I am, it's gonna be a green leaf something, and that's just the way that I like to roll. But that's me anywhere, out of state, in Michigan, out of Michigan, it doesn't matter. It's green leaf.
So we were talking about your A5.
Yeah.
Your favorite gun?
Depending on the situation.
Depending on the situation.
Yep.
Let's go. We're talking turkey. Let's talk turkey.
Mossberg. Yep. I've always been a Mossberg guy when it comes to turkeys. I don't know. I started with an 835 and moved on to a 535, and then now I'm on to a 940 Pro Turkey, and I'll be on that gun for a long time. Went over to semi-automatic, and then obviously the A5 is it's the backup. It stays as the backup, but I've killed turkeys with it. I like it. It will be my backup gun. It's not gonna be my main gun. Mossberg has my heart.
So, obviously your A5 isn't going to be your main turkey gun.
Yep.
But let's try not to stay biased here. So, turkey gun as a turkey gun.
Yeah.
What is your least favorite turkey gun? What is
Oh,
one that
gosh.
you'll never go back to? Like, what is a gun that is made for turkey hunting that you will never purchase again or never use, or you would recommend people stay away from?
That I didn't like.
Preference.
Oh, goodness. And this is preference.
Right.
Yeah.
Everyone
yeah.
can have different luck with their guns,
Oh,
but this
my
is your
goodness.
preference here.
All right. I hated the Remington Versamax. I hated that gun so much. That thing was the worst gun I've ever owned, ever. I hated that gun.
Now, why 4?
I didn't like how it cycled. It just didn't cycle good. I didn't like how it shot. I didn't like, and all guns shoot. All guns go bang. So I'm not like, don't take my words and spin it to where I say you just didn't like how the gun went off. That doesn't make sense. No, I just didn't like how the gun.
Right. This is with your experience with this gun. You just personally would not go back to it.
I wouldn't go back to a Remington Versamax. I did not like the gun. It was my least favorite gun I've ever shot, and I'm glad that I've went. And now again, I was a little bit more on the cheaper end when I bought the gun. Than what I have now. Obviously, we're talking, and with preference, obviously, we're comparing apples to oranges, right? It's
right.
preference. So
right.
the next
it's whatever you like.
The next guy down the road might love the Versamax, and I just don't like it.
Right. Yeah. I just want to know your personal what gun you wouldn't go back to.
I wouldn't go back to that gun I sold you. I'll tell you that much. That thing. You want to talk about a shoulder breaker? Whew! There's no recoil pad on that bad boy. That pistol grip and all. She is a beast to be reckoned with when you throw a 3.5-inch shell down the chamber of that bad boy.
Oh yeah. So, I think that was good. One final question for you before we wrap this up.
Right.
So you've hunted a lot of turkeys, a lot of different places.
Oh yeah.
I imagine you've hunted every type of turkey.
No,
correct?
not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
All right.
No.
Well, that brings me to the next question. What is your dream turkey hunt that you've been thinking about, that you want to go on, that you haven't yet? Just something that's been lingering in the back of your mind, something that you really want.
Yeah.
What is it?
So, let's start off. I have killed Rios, I've killed Merriams, and I've killed Easterns. I've not killed an Osceola yet.
So you've killed the 3 out of the 6?
I've killed 3 out of the 4 for the Grand Slam, 3 out of the 6 for the World Slam.
Gotcha. And for people who don't know, what is the
slams?
Yes.
So it's the Grand Slam is a killing 4 turkeys. Is killing the Eastern, the Rio, the Merriam, and the Osceola in the United States. That's the 4 species in the continental United States that the NWTF recognizes. That's in this, country.
Mm-hmm.
And then the World Slam is killing all 6 species, or all 5 species. I guess I'm saying 6 is 5. Oh, gosh, I'm so stupid sometimes.
I said 6 is probably why.
Yeah.
I'm a little less uneducated. This is only my second year hunting turkeys. So
the other 2 obviously are in Mexico, so you got to go down there to shoot the other 2, and that's a World Slam. You kill all 5. Or no, it is 6. Gosh,
is
there's 4 here, and then and 2 in Mexico. 6.
I'm messing you up, ain't I?
I'm tired, I guess.
It is also late.
So go down to Mexico, shoot the other 2. That's a World Slam.
Mm-hmm.
A Super Slam is killing in 49 of the 50 states. The only state that does not have a turkey season is Alaska. Hawaii has a turkey season. They have Rio Grandes over there, transplanted birds. They were not naturally there. We transplanted them there.
But regardless, they do have a season.
It is a season. It's a spring season. And then for here, and then all the lower 48, you have to kill a bird. That's a Super Slam. And a lot of guys are chasing that right now. A lot of guys are going for it. And a lot of guys don't even register it. They just do it for their own personal gain. They don't even care to register what they're doing with the NWTF or anything. And there's a lot of stuff that goes along with that. And a lot of guys do register it as well. That they're, what states they're killing in and stuff. But
just not everyone's bread and butter. They're not doing it for the reason that other people are doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
my dream hunt, going into what I've already killed, I mean, a lot of guys are probably going to say, an Osceola in Florida, but I would have to say an ocellated. The ocellated down in the Yucatan, oh my goodness. How amazing would it be to go down there? I mean, the thing looks like a peacock, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the spurs.
Beautiful colors.
For you spur-loving turkey guys, it's a giant spurred turkey. I mean, you're talking 2-inch spurs or more at times.
That's a lot.
It's huge. They're huge. And I'm more of a beard man. I am. I must profess that I am more of a beard guy.
Let me tell you, you guys can't see him yet, but Caleb's beard is very sexy.
Okay.
Yeah, I said it. Someone had to. Somebody had to.
I will say that I'm more of a beard guy when it comes to turkeys. I will be that guy that is looking at birds. They're coming in strutting and gobbling, and I'm looking at their beards thinking which one's bigger, and that's generally the one that's going to get rolled. If I can't really tell their beard difference or whatever, I mean, I'm shooting a shredder. But for you spur guys, ocellated is a really cool bird. They just have massive, huge spurs, and who wouldn't want to go with that? Who wouldn't want, to kill one of those? So it's a really cool animal to get a hold of, and that is my dream hunt. And it will happen one day. It's not soon, but it's going to happen one day. And I will say, obviously, it's expensive. That's the biggest thing. You're traveling to the Yucatan. You can't take guns down there, so every outfitter down there provides a gun. So that's one aspect of the travel, I guess. But it's a flight. You got to fly down. Everywhere here, minus Hawaii, I can drive if I want to. If I'm really wanting to, I can.
Right, it's an option. Depending on your budget is what you really want to do there, too.
Yeah, obviously. And so I can drive anywhere I want to go. But that's a flight, obviously. That's a long, long ways to go for if you're going to drive in multiple. I mean, if you want to hunt, there's other countries that have ocellateds other than Mexico. So that is my dream hunt. I want to hunt an ocellated turkey in the Yucatan. That is something I really want to do, and one day it will happen. Hopefully, with my cohorts in tow, with my wife or dad or whoever else wants to tag along and go with me, because I'm blessed with a good crew. But yeah, all right. Is that kind of do it for us?
Yeah, I believe that is all I have for you, Caleb.
All righty. Well, we thank you guys for coming in and listening, giving us a listen, and obviously comment down below if you're watching from YouTube, what you think, or give us subjects you want to hear about. Let us know. If you have anybody that that could be a guest on the show, let us know. We're just getting started here, so hopefully she's going to grow real quick. But obviously to the faith part of the podcast. We're going to close with a word of prayer.
We're going to close in prayer as we usually do. This is going to be a normal thing.
Yeah. So, James, go ahead and close us in prayer today.
All right. Feel free to follow along. Lord, we thank you for this outlet that you've given us, the opportunity to reach so many other hunters and maybe even non-hunters. Lord, we thank you for the meat you provide and the opportunity that our aim is straight and we kill these birds humanely or any animal that we're hunting. Lord, we thank you for this beautiful day that is a little warmer today, that we've had this opportunity to reach out to other people. Lord, we just thank you that you're such a merciful God, and we love you so much. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Until next time on the Faith, Fish, and Feathers podcast.
Y'all have a good day.
We out.
Body limit. That's it.